Okay, thanks for joining us today. We're glad to be here sharing with you more updates from the Study Bible Project and reflecting together um, on some passages from Ephesians. Yeah, I was thinking this morning, Steve, that in fact, I went back to YouTube to see when we started recording together, and it looks like it was in in the first week of November in 2024. So we're 16 months into this recording process, and I do want to thank you for your participation in that and encouraging me out into this venture. Um, so just our listeners know we try to get together through the internet every Wednesday morning, and been doing that for 16 weeks, unless scheduling won't allow us to. And I think it's been a really joyous time and enriching time, for both of us, and and from the and from the testimony of our listeners, they've been enjoying this process as well. So we thank you all for joining us and for taking your time to hear about these things. You know, the last week when we recorded, Steve, when we got done, you said you talked about how everything we were talking about would appear to be nonsense to the average Christian, the average person who would slip in here on YouTube and see these videos. They think we're just talking nonsense. You know, we're just blowing air and saying a lot of words that mean nothing. And that's the reality, is that without divine intervention, without realization from God, that's all that this is. It's just nonsense to the world. It's just noise. And, you and I have talked many times, as well as Andre and others among our co-laborers, that we have no delusions about what our work's about. We know that it's very limited in its scope of appeal, but it's exactly where Father wants it. And we have no delusions about the Study Bible Project. We know that this is not going to be a best-selling study Bible. And we know people aren't going to find it, at their Christian bookstore. And it's not going to be promoted and recommended and endorsed by anybody of any prominence or significance. We understand that. And we understand that it's the ultimate goal is not sales. If it was, we should back up and do something. We should back up and do something different. So it's not a work for the masses. It's a work for a very few. We were talking before we started this video, that Paul talked about not many, not many wise, not many noble. And the interesting thing is that was actually during his Acts ministry, which was much broader than his post-Acts ministry. He at least had the base of Israel to work from on that. And if Paul's ministry was not many, well, then that was intensified by the revelation of the secret administration. And there are very few, only those called, only the outcalled from before the disruption of the world will have ears and eyes that Father will enlighten. So we're almost surprised and thrilled, of course, but we're really almost surprised if anybody knows what we're talking about, if anybody gets resonation. from what's being said. And then you want to talk about a bond. Those who are this is resonating with. And so we're not talking about broad term truth and information. We're talking about very narrow, deep realization. And by out of necessity, this narrows the audience. And we are good with that. We're really thrilled with that when we realize it's God's purpose. Who doesn't want the masses to know the salvation of all and the goodness of the Father? But obviously, that's not what Father's written at this moment. Otherwise, it'd be accomplished. Whatever Father writes, he does. And that day will come. Today's date is about the preparation of the celestial superpowers, the powers in the super heavens, the powers in the above heavens. It's about preparation of those administrators there. And we recognize that draw, that outcalling in us toward that. And what we're doing is simply equipping the outcall for a super celestial ministry and calling. And we're humbled by that. And we are humbled by the voices of the few who say, this is a game changer. You've changed my understanding. Father's changed my life. Please keep going. This is very life to me. Those kind of comments are so meaningful. And those who are helping us labor in this are co-laborers and co-supporters, and we appreciate that. So we're in no delusions as to what we're doing. and we know where its effect lies. So in other words, the Study Bible Project, and more every project we have, is not a devotional. The Study Bible Project is not about a devotional Bible. The daily email goodies, the Bible Student's Notebook, the videos at YouTube, we're even reeling those in, as you may have noticed. And we are becoming more more substantial in content. And they're not about devotional information. It's not about milk. It's not about pablum and about porridge, or cream of wheat or cream of oats or cream of rice, cream of corn. It's about substance, and Paul made a connection, even in his Acts ministry, between milk and meat. So we're advancing to a meat ministry, and all trusting Father's daily direction, of course, according to what he's written from before the disruption of the world, before there were any of our days. So we're a meat ministry, and we acknowledge that, and we recognize that. Father's given us a carnivore ministry, as it were. And so this is not really a ministry, unless, let's think about this carefully. This is not really a ministry of comfort and reassurance, as it is a work of edification, building a doctrinal superstructure from which will come comfort and reassurance. Now, it doesn't mean that we don't comfort people and that we don't reassure them. But where that comfort and reassurance comes from is from the outworking of our own life. We're a comfort and reassurance to our family, to our friends, to our coworkers, to our neighbors. But the only way we can be any real comfort is that we possess doctrinal edification, that we possess stability from which we minister comfort. And so, these videos won't be so much about comforting the masses or our daily emo goodies or the Bible student's notebook as it is about edifying the outcalled so that they, in their own relative circle, then become the greatest source of comfort and peace and joy and gentleness and goodness and love as is possible in the context of this world's circumstances and environment. And it is something that we embrace. We realize that this is a serious work in training and preparing ourselves and our coworkers and those that listen and read, preparing them for our future role when the secret administration becomes a universal administration. And that from the super heaven at the right hand of God with Christ on his throne, we participate with the Christ, with our head in this glorious work. And we're just getting started here. We're learning what it means, to overcome circumstances and environment with viewpoint, with perception, with realization, with understanding, with grace and joy and peace and long suffering and patience and all these beautiful things. And so we rejoice in this. So the realization of Ephesians truth will change our lives. Really, the last thing the world needs is some other kind of ministry, whether it's on the internet or books or all kinds of things that's coming their way. What they need, is people in their lives who love them and care for them and whose lives are supernaturally changed by God's truth and his Spirit. And it's a foretaste. It's a practice. We're practicing what's going to happen in the celestials. We're learning how this works. Looking past the circumstances and seeing only God, a divine realization. So this study Bible is not, it's not likely for our neighbors and our cousins and, coworkers, but it will in a sense be for them because the greater, the more, Steve, the more we focus on these truths, the more practical we become in our lives. We probably heard it said before that he's so heavenly minded, he's no earthly good. I think that's sort of a commentary on religion instead of being heavenly minded. But I'll tell you what, when you get the understanding, the realization of the secret administration, we become so super heavenly minded. We're the only ones on the planet that are of any earthly good. And that's just the way it is, and wait till we get in our positions. It's going to be awesome to see this operation unfold, in a broad way. So in these initial stages in the Study Bible project, it would almost appear that we're moving at slow motion speed. It can feel that way to me sometimes because I'm thinking about it as a project, and I've written and we've discussed that while it is the Study Bible project, it is also a Study Bible process, and so I've been spending much of my time just reading and reading and reading and studying and studying and studying. And I keep moving, I keep advancing in Ephesians as I do that, knowing and expecting realization to come from the Father because he's the one who's called us down this path. And then that realization comes. And then you almost I have to start all over with this new little piece. And I go back to 1:1 and start going through again with another layer and a fresher approach. And one day we'll make it through this process. But it is essential if we're ever going to understand Paul's early ministry and epistles, if we're ever going to understand the ministry of the 12 in the rest of the New Testament, if we're ever going to understand the Old Testament, for us in the secret administration, it is of key importance that the greatest truth we have unmovably in our soul and spirit is this secret administration. And I am trusting Father daily in this process of reading and studying and being patient. He has already taken us. If we stop now, if we were done now, I would just be so thankful. But I have this great sense we're just getting started. And once we get this done, the rest of the Study Bible should flow so quickly because it'll all be in contrast to what we have. And it'll be a simple contrast. But because Paul's epistles have been blended in to the whole context of the Bible so that they become meaningless, we must go slow. We must have realization. We must emphasize that which has been mistranslated and that which has been overlooked.